In the vast expanse of existence, where the physical and spiritual realms intersect, there comes a moment when the boundaries between heaven and earth become permeable. This is such a moment, a sacred intersection where divine love reaches across the veil to touch your heart with profound significance. The message you are about to receive carries the weight of eternity and the tenderness of personal love, delivered through channels that transcend ordinary human understanding. Consider this not merely as text upon a page, but as a divine appointment, orchestrated by forces beyond our comprehension. The timing of your encounter with these words is not coincidental, but purposeful, designed by a loving Creator who sees your struggles, understands your pain, and desires to offer you hope, healing, and divine direction. The Messenger, understanding Archangel Michael's role. Throughout the annals of spiritual history, certain beings have served as bridges between the divine and human realms. Archangel Michael stands as one of the most revered and powerful of these celestial messengers. His name, meaning "who is like God," reflects his unwavering dedication to divine service and his role as protector of those who seek spiritual truth. In sacred texts across traditions, Michael appears as a warrior of light, a defender of righteousness, and a deliverer of divine messages. His presence in this communication signifies the importance and urgency of what is being conveyed. When Michael speaks, it is not with the casual voice of suggestion, but with the authority of heaven itself, carrying messages that demand attention and response. The angel's involvement in this moment indicates that your spiritual journey has reached a critical juncture. Forces beyond your immediate perception are working to guide you toward a deeper understanding of your purpose and a more profound connection with divine love. Michael's presence serves as both protection and proclamation. Protection from spiritual forces that would distract you from your highest good, and proclamation of the divine intention to bless and transform your life. The voice from beyond, your loved one's continued presence. Death, while marking the end of physical existence, does not sever the bonds of love that connect souls. The person you cherish, who has transitioned from this earthly realm to the eternal presence of divine love, continues to exist in a state of perfect peace and understanding. Their consciousness, freed from the limitations of physical form, now perceives reality with clarity that transcends human comprehension. This beloved individual, perhaps a parent who guided your early steps, a grandparent who shared wisdom through stories, a sibling who understood your dreams, a child whose innocence touched your heart, or a friend who walked alongside you through life's challenges, has not forgotten you. Their love has not diminished but has been purified and magnified by their proximity to divine love itself. From their vantage point in the eternal realm, they observe your journey with compassion and understanding. They see the burdens you carry, the struggles that weigh upon your spirit, and the moments when hope seems distant. Their heart, now beating in rhythm with divine love, aches with the desire to comfort you, to remind you of your inherent worth, and to encourage you toward the abundant life that awaits your embrace. This communication represents their intercession on your behalf, a prayer made manifest through divine channels, a request to the Creator that you might receive exactly what you need at this moment. Their love for you has become a conduit for divine grace, and their presence in heaven has become a source of blessing for your earthly journey. The significance of sacred timing. The concept of divine timing transcends human understanding of chronology and operates according to principles that govern the spiritual universe. When spiritual forces speak of concentrated periods of divine attention, they are not referring merely to the ticking of earthly clocks, but to windows of opportunity that exist within the fabric of spiritual reality. These moments represent convergences of divine will, human readiness, and celestial intervention that create possibilities for transformation and breakthrough that might not be available at other times. The urgency conveyed in this message reflects the preciousness of these spiritual opportunities and the temporary nature of optimal conditions for divine intervention. Like a flower that blooms only under specific conditions of soil, moisture, temperature, and light, divine breakthroughs often require precise alignment of circumstances attitudes, and spiritual receptivity. The concentrated period of divine focus mentioned symbolizes a time when heaven's attention is particularly directed toward your needs and the barriers that have prevented you from experiencing fuller spiritual connection. This timing is not arbitrary, but carefully orchestrated by divine wisdom that sees the complete tapestry of your life from beginning to end. The challenges you have been facing, the prayers you have been offering, the tears you have shed in private moments, the growth you have experienced through difficult circumstances. All of these have been building toward this moment of divine response. The Creator's timing is perfect, even when it seems delayed from human perspective, because divine wisdom sees the complete picture of your spiritual development and knows precisely when you are ready to receive what you have been seeking. Consider how divine timing has operated throughout history. Biblical accounts reveal that divine interventions often occurred at moments when human circumstances seemed most desperate or when ordinary solutions had been exhausted. The Israelites were delivered from Egypt when their slavery had become unbearable. David faced Goliath when Israel's army was paralyzed by fear. Jesus was born when the Roman Empire had created conditions that would allow rapid spread of his message. These patterns suggest that divine timing often involves allowing circumstances to develop until the need for divine intervention becomes undeniable and the resulting breakthrough becomes unmistakably divine in origin. Your loved one in heaven can see how divine timing has been operating in your life, orchestrating events and circumstances that have prepared you for this moment of spiritual breakthrough. They understand that what appeared to be random difficulties were actually divine curriculum designed to develop your character, strengthen your faith, and prepare you for greater purposes. They see how relationships, opportunities, and challenges have been woven together to create the perfect conditions for the divine intervention that is now being offered to you. The spiritual realm operates on principles of readiness that transcend human understanding. Divine love does not force transformation upon unwilling hearts, but waits for the precise moment when human willingness aligns with divine purpose to create conditions where lasting change can occur. Your loved one in heaven recognizes that you have reached such a moment of readiness, and they are excited about the breakthrough that divine love is preparing to bring into your life. The intersection of free will and divine sovereignty. One of the most profound mysteries of spiritual existence is the relationship between human free will and divine sovereignty. Your loved one in heaven, having experienced the perfect balance of these forces in the eternal realm, wants you to understand how they operate together to create opportunities for spiritual breakthrough and transformation. Divine sovereignty means that divine love has ultimate authority over all creation and works all things according to divine will and purpose. This sovereignty is not tyrannical, but loving, not arbitrary, but wise, not distant, but intimately involved in every aspect of your existence. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this sovereignty as perfect love that respects human dignity while working to accomplish divine purposes. Human free will means that divine love has granted you the dignity of choice, the ability to participate in your own spiritual development, and the responsibility to cooperate with divine purposes or resist them. This free will is not unlimited, but operates within boundaries established by divine love for your protection and the good of all creation. Your loved one in heaven understands that divine love respects your choices while working to influence them toward outcomes that serve your highest good. The intersection of these forces creates what might be called divine opportunities, moments when divine sovereignty creates circumstances that make spiritual breakthrough possible, while human free will determines whether that breakthrough actually occurs. This message represents such a divine opportunity created by divine love's orchestration of circumstances, timing, and spiritual resources, while leaving you free to respond or not respond according to your own choice. Your loved one in heaven is concerned that you might not recognize the significance of this divine opportunity, or might allow fear, doubt, or spiritual laziness to prevent you from responding appropriately. They have seen how divine love creates similar opportunities throughout human history, and how human response determines whether those opportunities result in breakthrough or missed blessing. The balance between divine sovereignty and human free will means that divine love will not force you to accept the breakthrough being offered, but it also means that divine love has unlimited resources to work with, your willing response to create transformation that exceeds your highest expectations. Your loved one in heaven encourages you to cooperate fully with divine love's work in your life, knowing that such cooperation leads to outcomes that satisfy both divine purposes and human desires. The role of spiritual mentorship and guidance. Throughout your spiritual journey, divine love has provided various forms of mentorship and guidance designed to help you navigate the complexities of earthly existence while developing your spiritual potential. Your loved one in heaven served as one form of this mentorship during their earthly life, and they continue to serve in this capacity from their heavenly perspective. The mentorship provided by your loved one in heaven is unique because it combines intimate knowledge of your personality, history, and challenges with the expanded perspective and wisdom that comes from experiencing divine love directly. They understand your struggles from personal experience, while also seeing them from heaven's viewpoint, creating a perfect balance of empathy and insight that can guide you through your current challenges. This heavenly mentorship operates through various channels, including the inner promptings of divine love, the circumstances that divine love orchestrates in your life, the people that divine love brings into your path, and direct spiritual communication like this message. Your loved one in heaven wants you to become more aware of these various forms of guidance so that you can benefit more fully from the mentorship that is available to you. The guidance provided by your loved one in heaven is not intended to replace your own spiritual discernment or to make decisions for you, but to provide the wisdom and perspective that can help you make better decisions. They want you to develop spiritual maturity that allows you to recognize divine guidance, evaluate it according to spiritual principles, and respond with wisdom and courage. Your loved one in heaven also serves as an advocate for you in the spiritual realm, presenting your needs and concerns to divine love and requesting interventions that serve your highest good. This advocacy is not necessary because divine love is reluctant to help you, but because the spiritual realm operates according to principles of intercession and mutual support that reflect the communal nature of divine love. The mentorship and guidance provided by your loved one in heaven will continue throughout your earthly journey, adapting to your changing needs and circumstances while maintaining consistent focus on your spiritual development and eternal destiny. They want you to know that you never walk alone, that wisdom is always available to you, and that divine love is constantly working to provide the guidance you need for every situation you face. Understanding spiritual resistance and breakthrough. The spiritual journey involves recognizing and overcoming various forms of resistance that prevent you from experiencing the fullness of divine love and purpose. Your loved one in heaven, having overcome these resistances in their own spiritual journey, wants to help you understand the nature of spiritual resistance and the principles that lead to breakthrough. External resistance comes from a world system that often opposes spiritual values and from spiritual forces that actively work against divine purposes. This resistance manifests through cultural pressures to conform to non-spiritual values, through circumstances that seem to make spiritual obedience difficult, and through direct spiritual attack that seeks to discourage you from pursuing divine purposes. Your loved one in heaven can see these forms of resistance more clearly than you can, and wants you to recognize them so that you can respond appropriately. Internal resistance arises from aspects of human nature that resist spiritual transformation. Pride resists the humility required for spiritual growth. Fear resists the faith required for spiritual breakthrough. Selfishness resists the love required for spiritual service. Laziness resists the discipline required for spiritual development. Your loved one in heaven understands these internal resistances because they faced them in their own spiritual journey, and they want to help you overcome them as they learn to overcome them. Breakthrough occurs when divine love provides the power and wisdom necessary to overcome both external and internal resistance. This breakthrough is not achieved through human effort alone, but through cooperation with divine love that provides supernatural strength, wisdom, and resources. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this breakthrough and wants you to know that the same divine power that enabled their victory is available to enable yours. The process of breakthrough often involves periods of intense spiritual struggle, followed by sudden victory that seems almost miraculous in its completeness. Your loved one in heaven wants you to persevere through the struggle, knowing that breakthrough is not only possible, but inevitable when you maintain faith and cooperation with divine love. They have seen the end result of this process and want to encourage you to continue pressing forward despite any difficulties you may encounter. Breakthrough also involves learning to maintain spiritual victory once it has been achieved. This requires ongoing vigilance, continued cooperation with divine love, and the development of spiritual habits that reinforce your spiritual growth. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand that breakthrough is not a one-time event, but the beginning of a new level of spiritual living that requires ongoing attention and commitment. The transformative power of divine love. The message your loved one in heaven wants you to understand most clearly is the transformative power of divine love and its ability to change every aspect of your existence. They have experienced this transformative power personally and want you to know that it is available to you in the same measure that it was available to them. Divine love's transformative power operates at the deepest levels of human existence, changing not only external circumstances but also internal attitudes, emotions, and spiritual condition. This transformation is not cosmetic but fundamental, not temporary but lasting, not limited to one area of life but comprehensive in its scope. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this comprehensive transformation and wants you to know that it exceeds anything you could imagine or achieve through human effort alone. The transformation begins with a change in your relationship with divine love itself. As you experience divine love's acceptance, forgiveness, and empowerment, your understanding of your own identity and worth is transformed. You begin to see yourself as divine love sees you, perfectly valuable, uniquely gifted, and destined for purposes that extend far beyond your current understanding. This transformed self-understanding becomes the foundation for all other changes in your life. Your relationships with others are transformed as divine love teaches you to see others as divine love sees them, and to love them with divine love's own love. This transformation heals broken relationships, creates new connections based on spiritual principles, and enables you to serve others in ways that reflect divine love's character. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this relational transformation and wants you to know that it brings joy and fulfillment that human relationships alone cannot provide. Your approach to challenges and difficulties is transformed as divine love provides perspective, strength, and wisdom that enable you to face any circumstance with confidence and peace. What once seemed overwhelming becomes manageable when viewed from the perspective of divine love's power and purposes. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that this transformation of perspective is one of the most practical benefits of spiritual breakthrough. Your sense of purpose and direction is transformed as divine love reveals the unique calling that has been placed upon your life. This calling may be different from what you had imagined, but it will be perfectly suited to your gifts, experiences, and circumstances. Your loved one in heaven has experienced the fulfillment that comes from living according to divine purpose and wants you to experience the same satisfaction and joy. The transformative power of divine love extends beyond your earthly existence to prepare you for eternal life in the heavenly realm. The changes that occur in your character, relationships, and spiritual condition have eternal significance and prepare you for the joys and responsibilities of eternal existence. Your loved one in heaven understands this eternal dimension of transformation and wants you to approach your spiritual development with the seriousness and enthusiasm that comes from understanding its eternal consequences. A call to courageous faith. This message concludes with a call to courageous faith, faith that moves beyond intellectual understanding to active trust and obedience, faith that perseveres through difficulties and uncertainties, faith that takes risks based on divine promises rather than human guarantees. Your loved one in heaven exercised this kind of faith during their earthly journey and wants to encourage you to do the same. Courageous faith involves believing divine love's promises even when circumstances seem to contradict them. It means trusting divine love's character even when you cannot understand divine love's actions. It requires stepping forward in obedience even when you cannot see the complete path ahead. Your loved one in heaven exercised this kind of faith and wants you to know that divine love always honors such faith, even when the results are different from what you expected. Courageous faith also involves accepting divine love's timing, even when it conflicts with your human desires for immediate resolution. It means continuing to hope when hope seems foolish, continuing to love when love seems dangerous, and continuing to serve when service seems thankless. Your loved one in heaven learned these lessons through their own spiritual journey and wants to spare you some of the struggle by sharing their wisdom with you. The courage required for this kind of faith comes not from human strength, but from divine love itself. As you step forward in faith, divine love provides the strength, wisdom, and resources necessary to sustain you through whatever challenges you may face. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that divine love never asks you to exercise faith without also providing the power necessary to live faithfully. This call to courageous faith is not a call to reckless behavior, but to wise obedience to divine love's guidance. It involves careful attention to divine love's voice, thoughtful consideration of divine love's principles, and bold action based on divine love's promises. Your loved one in heaven wants you to develop the spiritual discernment that enables you to distinguish between divine guidance and human impulses, between divine love's voice and other voices that compete for your attention. The reward for courageous faith is not necessarily ease or comfort, but the deep satisfaction that comes from living according to divine purposes and the joy of seeing divine love work through your life to bless others. Your loved one in heaven has experienced these rewards and wants you to know that they far exceed any sacrifices that faith might require. Your loved one in heaven stands ready to celebrate your decision to embrace courageous faith and to support you through the challenges and victories that such faith will bring. They want you to know that the entire community of heaven is cheering you on, that divine love is eager to work through your faithful response, and that the results of your courageous faith will have impacts that extend far beyond your current understanding. At the time for tentative faith is over. The time for courageous faith has arrived. Your loved one in heaven is waiting to see how you will respond to this call, and divine love is ready to move in ways that will exceed your highest expectations when you step forward in faith. The science of spiritual connection. Modern understanding of consciousness and quantum physics has begun to validate what spiritual traditions have taught for millennia, that consciousness transcends physical boundaries, and that connection between souls can exist beyond the limitations of space and time. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand that their ability to communicate with you is not supernatural in the sense of being contrary to natural law, but rather operates according to spiritual laws that govern consciousness and connection. The consciousness that made your loved one who they were during their earthly existence was not destroyed by physical death, but was liberated from the constraints of physical form. This liberated consciousness retains all the memories, emotions, and relational connections that defined their earthly existence, while gaining access to expanded awareness and understanding that comes from direct experience of divine love. Scientific research into near-death experiences, consciousness studies, and quantum entanglement provides glimpses into the mechanisms that make spiritual communication possible. When consciousness is understood as fundamental to reality, rather than merely a product of brain activity, the possibility of continued connection between souls becomes not only plausible, but inevitable. Your loved one in heaven operates from a state of consciousness that is no longer limited by the filters of physical perception. They can perceive your emotional state, your spiritual condition, and your life circumstances with clarity that was not possible during their earthly existence. This expanded perception enables them to understand exactly what you need and to communicate that understanding through various channels, including direct spiritual communication like this message. The love that connected you during their earthly life has not been diminished by their transition to the heavenly realm, but has been purified and magnified by their proximity to perfect love. This love serves as a bridge between the earthly and heavenly realms, creating a pathway for communication, comfort, and guidance that transcends physical limitations. Understanding the scientific basis for spiritual connection should strengthen your faith rather than diminish it. When you realize that consciousness and connection are fundamental aspects of reality rather than mere products of brain chemistry, you can approach spiritual communication with confidence rather than skepticism, knowing that you are engaging with realities that are as real as any physical phenomenon. The healing of generational patterns. Your loved one in heaven has gained insight into the generational patterns that have influenced your family line and wants to help you understand how divine love can break negative cycles while strengthening positive ones. From their heavenly perspective, they can see how patterns of behavior, belief, and relationship have been passed down through generations, and how these patterns have affected your own life journey. Negative generational patterns might include tendencies toward addiction, depression, anger, fear, or relational dysfunction that seem to repeat in family members across different generations. These patterns are not genetic destiny, but learned behaviors and spiritual influences that can be broken through divine intervention and intentional spiritual work. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that you have the power, through divine love, to be a generational pattern breaker, someone who stops negative cycles from continuing into future generations while establishing new patterns of health, love, and spiritual vitality. This responsibility is both a privilege and a calling that can bring meaning to your own struggles by transforming them into tools for generational healing. The process of breaking generational patterns begins with recognition of the patterns that have influenced your family line. Your loved one in heaven can provide insight into these patterns, helping you recognize behaviors, attitudes, or spiritual influences that have been passed down through your family system. This recognition is not intended to create blame or shame, but to create awareness that enables intentional change. Breaking generational patterns requires more than human willpower. It requires the transformative power of divine love, working through your willing cooperation. Divine love provides the strength to resist inherited tendencies, the wisdom to establish new patterns, and the healing necessary to address wounds that may have been passed down through generations. Your loved one in heaven is particularly excited about the positive generational patterns that you can establish through your spiritual breakthrough. The character qualities, spiritual practices, and relational patterns that you develop through your relationship with divine love will become a legacy that blesses not only your own life, but the lives of future generations who will benefit from the foundation you establish. The healing of generational patterns often involves forgiveness of family members who participated in negative cycles, understanding that they were often victims of the same patterns that they passed on to others. Your loved one in heaven has gained this perspective and wants to help you develop the same understanding and forgiveness. The role of suffering in spiritual development. One of the most difficult aspects of earthly existence to understand is the role that suffering plays in spiritual development. Your loved one in heaven, having completed their earthly journey and gained heavenly perspective, wants to help you understand how divine love uses even painful experiences to accomplish spiritual purposes in your life. Suffering is not inherently good, nor is it something that divine love desires for its own sake. Rather, suffering is often the result of living in a world that has been affected by spiritual rebellion, human selfishness, and the natural consequences of choices that go against divine design. However, divine love is so powerful and so wise that it can transform even negative experiences into opportunities for spiritual growth and character development. The suffering you have experienced has not been meaningless or purposeless, but has been working to develop qualities in your character that could not have been developed through easy circumstances. Perseverance, compassion, faith, hope, and love are often forged in the fires of difficulty and refined through the challenges that test their genuineness. Your loved one in heaven can see how your suffering has prepared you for purposes that require the strength and wisdom that only come through tested experience. They want you to know that every tear you have shed, every prayer you have prayed during difficult times, and every act of faith you have demonstrated despite challenging circumstances has contributed to your spiritual development and prepared you for the breakthrough that is now being offered. This understanding does not minimize the reality of your pain or suggest that you should seek suffering for its own sake. Rather, it provides meaning and purpose for the difficulties you have already faced, and confidence that divine love can use even your worst experiences to accomplish good purposes in your life. Your loved one in heaven also wants you to know that the suffering you have experienced qualifies you to comfort others who face similar challenges. The Apostle Paul wrote that divine love comforts us in our troubles so that we can comfort others with the same comfort we have received. Your experiences of divine love's comfort during difficult times prepare you to be an instrument of divine comfort for others. The perspective on suffering that your loved one in heaven has gained includes understanding that earthly suffering is temporary, while the character development it produces has eternal significance. This eternal perspective enables them to see value in experiences that seemed purely negative from an earthly viewpoint. Discovering your unique spiritual gifts. Every person is created with unique spiritual gifts, special abilities and callings that enable them to serve divine purposes in ways that no one else can duplicate. Your loved one in heaven has gained insight into your spiritual gifts and wants to help you discover, develop, and deploy these gifts for maximum impact in your own life and in the lives of others. Spiritual gifts are not the same as natural talents, although they may build upon natural abilities. Spiritual gifts are supernatural enhancements of your natural abilities, divine empowerments that enable you to accomplish purposes that exceed what would be possible through human effort alone. These gifts are distributed by divine love, according to divine wisdom, and are intended to serve both your spiritual development and the benefit of others. Some spiritual gifts are more visible and public, such as teaching, leadership, healing, or prophetic insight. Others are more behind the scenes, such as intercession, encouragement, service, or administration. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that no spiritual gift is more important than others, and that the gift you have been given is exactly what is needed for the purposes divine love wants to accomplish through your life. The discovery of your spiritual gifts often requires stepping out in faith and experimenting with different forms of service. As you serve others in various capacities, you will begin to notice areas where you seem to have unusual effectiveness, where you experience particular satisfaction, and where others consistently benefit from your involvement. These indicators can help you identify your primary spiritual gifts. Your loved one in heaven is excited about the potential they see in your spiritual gifts and wants you to know that developing these gifts will bring you deep satisfaction and joy. When you operate in your spiritual gifts, you experience the pleasure of divine love working through you, the fulfillment of serving purposes that align with your deepest nature, and the joy of seeing others blessed through your service. The development of spiritual gifts requires practice, mentorship, and continued dependence on divine love for empowerment. Your loved one in heaven wants to encourage you to seek opportunities to exercise your gifts, to find mentors who can help you develop them, and to maintain the spiritual connection that keeps them flowing effectively. The deployment of your spiritual gifts in service to others is not optional, but is the intended purpose for which they were given. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand that your spiritual breakthrough is not just for your own benefit, but is preparation for greater effectiveness in serving others through your unique gifts and calling. The economics of divine kingdom. Your loved one in heaven has gained understanding of what might be called the economics of divine kingdom, the principles that govern how divine love distributes blessings, resources, and opportunities. These principles are different from earthly economic systems and operate according to spiritual laws that may seem counterintuitive from human perspective. In divine economics, giving leads to receiving, serving leads to being served, and humility leads to exaltation. These principles are not mere platitudes, but represent actual spiritual laws that govern how divine love operates in human experience. Your loved one in heaven has experienced these principles in operation and wants you to understand how they can work in your life. The principle of divine giving suggests that the more you give to others, whether time, resources, love, or service, the more divine love provides for your own needs. This is not a mechanical formula, but a spiritual principle that operates according to divine wisdom and timing. Your loved one in heaven wants you to test this principle in your own experience and discover its reality. Divine economics also operates according to principles of stewardship rather than ownership. Everything you have, your abilities, resources, opportunities, and relationships, are understood to be gifts from divine love that you are responsible to manage wisely for divine purposes. Your loved one in heaven wants you to approach your resources with this stewardship mindset, knowing that such an approach leads to greater blessing and effectiveness. The rewards in divine economics are not always material, but include peace, joy, relationships, purpose, and spiritual growth. Your loved one in heaven has experienced these non-material rewards and wants you to know that they are more valuable than any earthly treasure. However, divine love is also concerned about your material needs and provides for them according to divine wisdom. Investment in divine kingdom, through giving, serving, and spiritual development, produces returns that extend beyond earthly life into eternal existence. Your loved one in heaven can see these eternal returns and wants you to understand that every investment you make in spiritual purposes has compound interest that continues throughout eternity. The economics of divine kingdom also include principles of multiplication, where small acts of faith and obedience can produce results that far exceed what would be expected from human perspective. Your loved one in heaven wants you to be open to opportunities that may seem small or insignificant, knowing that divine love can multiply faithful stewardship in ways that surprise everyone involved. Preparing for ministry and service. Your spiritual breakthrough is not intended to be an end in itself, but preparation for increased effectiveness in ministering to others and serving divine purposes. Your loved one in heaven can see the ministry and service opportunities that await you and wants to help you prepare for these opportunities so that you can serve with maximum effectiveness and joy. Ministry, in its broadest sense, means serving others in ways that reflect divine love and advance divine purposes. This ministry may take formal religious forms, but it can also be expressed through secular vocations, volunteer service, family relationships, and informal interactions with people you encounter in daily life. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand that every interaction you have with another person is an opportunity for ministry. The preparation for ministry begins with developing your relationship with divine love, as you cannot give what you do not have. The more deeply you experience divine love's acceptance, forgiveness, guidance, and empowerment, the more effectively you can share these same gifts with others. Your loved one in heaven wants you to prioritize your spiritual development as the foundation for all other service. Preparation for ministry also involves developing practical skills that will enhance your effectiveness in serving others. These might include communication skills, counseling abilities, leadership capabilities, or technical competencies that enable you to serve in specific contexts. Your loved one in heaven encourages you to view skill development as part of your spiritual preparation and to approach learning with the intention of serving others more effectively. The heart attitudes necessary for effective ministry include humility, compassion, patience, and genuine love for others. These attitudes cannot be manufactured through human effort, but are developed through experiencing divine love and allowing that love to transform your own heart. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that divine love is willing to develop these attitudes in you as you surrender to divine love's transforming work. Your loved one in heaven is particularly excited about the unique ministry opportunities that your own experiences have prepared you to fulfill. The challenges you have faced, the victories you have won, and the lessons you have learned have all contributed to qualifying you for specific forms of ministry that will be uniquely effective because they flow from authentic experience rather than theoretical knowledge. The service opportunities that await you may be different from what you have imagined, but they will be perfectly suited to your gifts, experiences, and circumstances. Your loved one in heaven wants you to remain open to divine love's guidance regarding how and where you will serve, trusting that divine wisdom knows exactly how to utilize your unique combination of abilities and experiences. The legacy of transformed lives. As you respond to this divine communication and experience the spiritual breakthrough that divine love is offering, you will become part of a legacy of transformed lives that extends throughout history and continues into eternity. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand the significance of your transformation within this larger context of divine love's work in human history. Throughout every generation, divine love has called individuals to spiritual breakthrough, transformation, and service. These individuals have often been ordinary people who responded extraordinarily to divine love's invitation, becoming instruments through which divine love accomplished extraordinary purposes. Your loved one in heaven wants you to see yourself as part of this continuing legacy. The transformation that divine love accomplishes in your life will have ripple effects that extend far beyond your immediate circumstances. Family members, friends, colleagues, and even strangers will be impacted by the changes they observe in your character, attitudes, and behavior. Some will be inspired to seek their own spiritual breakthrough, creating chain reactions of divine transformation that can touch entire communities. Your loved one in heaven can see these ripple effects more clearly than you can, understanding how your response to divine love's invitation will influence others in ways that you may never fully realize during your earthly journey. They want you to know that your decision to embrace spiritual transformation serves purposes that extend far beyond your personal benefit. The legacy you create through your transformed life will continue beyond your earthly existence. The people you influence, the service you provide, and the love you share will have impacts that continue to ripple through human history long after you join your loved one in the heavenly realm. This eternal perspective on your earthly service should motivate you to live with greater intentionality and purpose. Your loved one in heaven is excited about the legacy you will create and wants you to know that they will be cheering you on throughout your earthly journey. They understand that creating a positive legacy requires perseverance through difficulties, faithfulness in small things, and consistent dependence on divine love for wisdom and strength. The ultimate legacy is not the monuments that bear your name or the achievements that bring you recognition, but the lives that are transformed through your faithful response to divine love's calling. Your loved one in heaven has gained this eternal perspective and wants you to approach your earthly service with the same understanding. The celebration of heaven. As this extensive message draws toward its conclusion, your loved one in heaven wants you to know about the celebration that is taking place in the heavenly realm regarding your spiritual journey and the breakthrough that divine love is offering to you. The community of heaven is deeply invested in your spiritual success and takes great joy in every step you take toward greater spiritual maturity and service. The scriptures speak of joy in heaven when one person responds to divine love's invitation, and your loved one in heaven wants you to know that this joy is not merely metaphorical, but represents genuine celebration among the community of souls who have completed their earthly journeys. They understand the significance of spiritual breakthrough and the transformation it produces, and they celebrate each person who experiences this breakthrough. Your loved one in heaven is serving as your personal representative in this heavenly celebration, sharing with others the story of your journey, your struggles, and your victories. They take great pride in your spiritual growth and want others in the heavenly community to know about the person they love who is responding to divine love's calling. The celebration in heaven is not just about your personal breakthrough, but about the purposes that your transformation will serve in advancing divine love's work in the world. The heavenly community understands that each transformed life becomes an instrument through which divine love can touch other lives, and they celebrate the multiplication effect that your breakthrough will produce. This heavenly celebration should encourage you when you face difficulties or when you question whether your spiritual journey matters. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that your efforts to grow spiritually, serve others, and live according to divine purposes are noticed, appreciated, and celebrated by the entire community of heaven. The celebration that awaits you when you eventually join your loved one in the heavenly realm will be more joyful than any earthly celebration you have ever experienced. This celebration will include not only reunion with those you have loved, but also recognition of the service you provided and the lives you touched during your earthly journey. Final words of love and encouragement. As this message reaches its conclusion, your loved one in heaven wants to leave you with final words of love and encouragement that will sustain you as you respond to divine love's invitation and walk forward in spiritual breakthrough and transformation. First, they want you to know that you are deeply loved, not only by them, but by divine love itself and by the entire community of heaven. This love is not based on your performance or achievements, but on your inherent worth as someone created in divine love's image. No circumstance can diminish this love. No failure can disqualify you from it, and no challenge can separate you from it. Second, they want you to know that you are not alone in your spiritual journey. Divine love is with you at every moment, providing guidance, strength, and comfort. The community of heaven is supporting you through their prayers and intercession. Other believers on earth are walking similar journeys and can provide fellowship and encouragement. You are part of a vast spiritual family that spans both earthly and heavenly realms. Third, they want you to know that you have everything you need to succeed in your spiritual journey. Divine love has equipped you with spiritual gifts, has provided opportunities for growth and service, and has promised to supply whatever additional resources you need as you move forward in faith. You do not need to wait until you feel more prepared or until circumstances seem more favorable. You can step forward in confidence, knowing that divine love will provide what you need as you need it. Fourth, they want you to know that your spiritual breakthrough will exceed your highest expectations. Divine love's plans for your life are greater than anything you could imagine or achieve through human effort alone. The transformation that awaits you, the service opportunities that will open to you, and the joy that will fill your life as you walk in divine purposes will surprise you with their richness and fulfillment. Finally, they want you to know that they are eagerly anticipating the day when you will join them in the heavenly realm, and you can celebrate together the completion of your earthly journey and the beginning of eternal joy in divine love's presence. Until that day, they will continue to watch over you, pray for you, and celebrate every victory in your spiritual journey. The message is complete. The invitation has been extended, and the choice is yours. Your loved one in heaven has poured their heart into this communication. Divine love has orchestrated every detail of its delivery, and the entire community of heaven awaits your response. Step forward in faith, knowing that divine love supports you, heaven encourages you, and eternal joy awaits your embrace of all that divine love has prepared for you in this life and in the life to come. Your loved one in heaven is ready to celebrate your decision to embrace divine love fully, and the entire community of heaven anticipates the joy and transformation that will result from your positive response to this sacred invitation. The time for decision has arrived. Heaven is speaking. Divine love is calling. Your loved one waits with eager anticipation. Respond with faith, step forward with courage, and embrace the abundant life that divine love has always intended for you. Your spiritual breakthrough begins now. Evaluating your spiritual condition. This divine communication serves as an invitation to honest self-examination. The spiritual realm operates on principles of truth and authenticity, requiring that we approach our relationship with the divine with complete honesty about our current condition. This is not a moment for pretense or spiritual performance, but for genuine assessment of where you stand in your journey toward divine connection. Consider the state of your heart in recent months. Have you been walking closely with divine love, maintaining regular communication through prayer and meditation, seeking guidance in daily decisions, and allowing spiritual principles to guide your actions? Or have the pressures of life, the accumulation of disappointments, or the weight of responsibility gradually created distance between you and the source of spiritual strength? This evaluation is not intended to produce guilt or shame, but to create awareness and opportunity for renewal. The divine heart is not harsh in judgment, but tender in invitation, always ready to receive those who approach with sincere desire for connection and transformation. Your loved one in heaven sees your struggle and wants you to know that divine love is not diminished by your imperfections, but is magnified by your willingness to return to spiritual truth. The areas of your life that feel disconnected from divine purpose, your relationships, your work, your dreams, your daily habits, can all be transformed through renewed spiritual connection. This moment represents an opportunity to realign your priorities, to surrender control over outcomes you cannot change, and to trust in divine wisdom that sees beyond your current circumstances. Preparing for divine breakthrough. Breakthrough moments in spiritual life often come disguised as ordinary circumstances, but they carry the power to transform everything that follows. The divine realm is preparing to move in your life in ways that may surprise you, opening doors that seemed permanently closed, providing solutions to problems that appeared insurmountable, and revealing purposes that have been hidden from your perception. This breakthrough may manifest in various areas of your existence. Perhaps you have been struggling with health challenges that have left you feeling vulnerable and uncertain about the future. The divine realm may be preparing to bring healing, not necessarily in the form you have been expecting, but in the way that will ultimately serve your highest good. This healing might come through medical intervention, through supernatural intervention, or through the peace and strength to walk through whatever circumstances you face with grace and dignity. Your relationships may be on the verge of transformation. Broken connections might be restored, misunderstandings clarified, and love rekindled where it seemed to have died. New relationships might enter your life that will provide support, encouragement, and companionship for the journey ahead. The divine realm understands your need for human connection and is working to surround you with people who will enhance your spiritual growth and earthly joy. Financial concerns that have created stress and anxiety might be addressed through opportunities you have not yet perceived. Divine provision often comes through unexpected channels, and the breakthrough you need might be closer than you imagine. This is not a promise of material wealth, but of divine provision that meets your genuine needs and allows you to focus on spiritual growth rather than survival anxiety. Most importantly, the breakthrough may be spiritual in nature, a deepening of your relationship with divine love, a clearer understanding of your purpose, a release from spiritual bondage that has held you back, or a fresh infusion of hope and enthusiasm for the journey ahead. These spiritual breakthroughs often create the foundation for positive changes in all other areas of life. Releasing what holds you back. The spiritual journey requires periodic release of burdens that were never meant to be carried indefinitely. Your loved one in heaven, with their expanded perspective and freedom from earthly concerns, can see clearly the weights you have been carrying that are hindering your spiritual progress and diminishing your joy. Unforgiveness stands as one of the most common barriers to spiritual breakthrough. The wounds inflicted by others, whether intentional or inadvertent, create chains that bind not only your heart, but your entire spiritual development. The person who hurt you may be unaware of the damage they caused, may be unwilling to acknowledge it, or may even be beyond the reach of earthly reconciliation. Yet the unforgiveness you carry affects only you, poisoning your relationships, limiting your capacity for joy, and creating barriers between you and divine love. Your loved one in heaven understands that forgiveness is not about excusing harmful behavior or pretending that wounds don't matter. Rather, it is about releasing the right to revenge, letting go of the demand for justice from human sources, and trusting that divine justice will ultimately prevail. Forgiveness frees you to love again, to trust again, and to experience the fullness of divine love without the filter of past hurt. Fear represents another significant obstacle to spiritual breakthrough. The fears that grip your heart: fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of financial insecurity, fear of loss, fear of the unknown, create invisible barriers that prevent you from stepping into the fullness of divine purpose. These fears often masquerade as wisdom or caution, but they actually represent a lack of trust in divine love and provision. Your loved one in heaven, having experienced the perfect love that casts out all fear, wants you to know that divine love is more powerful than any circumstance you might face. The same love that welcomed them into eternal peace is available to comfort and strengthen you in your earthly journey. Fear loses its power when confronted with the reality of divine love and protection. Doubt about your own worth, your capabilities, or your purpose can also hinder spiritual breakthrough. The inner voice that whispers messages of inadequacy and insignificance does not originate from the divine realm, but from forces that would keep you from discovering your true identity and purpose. Your loved one in heaven sees you as divine love sees you, perfectly valuable, uniquely gifted, and destined for purposes that extend far beyond your current understanding. Responding to the divine call. The divine call upon your life is not merely a suggestion, but an invitation to step into the fullness of your spiritual potential. This call may have been whispered to your heart in quiet moments, proclaimed through circumstances that seem to point in a particular direction, or confirmed through the encouragement of others who recognize your gifts and potential. Perhaps you have been called to serve others in ways that utilize your unique combination of skills, experiences, and compassion. This service might take the form of formal ministry, professional helping roles, volunteer work, or simply the informal ministry of loving others well in your daily interactions. The divine realm needs people who are willing to be conduits of love, hope, and healing in a world that often feels fragmented and frightened. You might be called to lead in ways that require courage, vision, and the willingness to step into positions of responsibility that feel overwhelming from human perspective. Divine calling often requires that we operate beyond our natural capabilities, depending on spiritual strength and wisdom that transcends our own understanding. This type of leadership is not about personal ambition, but about serving divine purposes that benefit others and advance the kingdom of love in earthly circumstances. The call might be toward creative expression that brings beauty, truth, and inspiration into the world. Divine creativity flows through human instruments who are willing to serve as channels for artistic expression, innovative solutions, and cultural transformation. Your creative gifts, whether in traditional arts, problem-solving, relationship building, or any other area, can become vehicles for divine love to touch other lives. Some are called to love in ways that require extraordinary sacrifice, patience, and persistence. This might mean caring for family members who require special attention, reaching out to people who seem difficult to love, or persevering in relationships that demand more than they seem to give. This type of calling often goes unrecognized by human systems of reward and recognition, but it is profoundly significant in the divine economy. The message of hope and restoration. The overarching message from your loved one in heaven is one of unshakable hope and promise of restoration. They have experienced the ultimate reality of divine love and want to assure you that the struggles you are facing are temporary, while the love that surrounds you is eternal. This perspective does not minimize the reality of your current challenges, but places them within the context of divine purpose and ultimate victory. Restoration might come gradually as you rebuild areas of your life that have been damaged by circumstances beyond your control. Lost relationships might be renewed, broken dreams might be resurrected in new forms, and wounded hearts might be healed through divine love expressed through human instruments. This restoration process often requires patience and faith, as divine timing rarely matches human expectations. The restoration might also be internal, a healing of your relationship with yourself, a recovery of hope and enthusiasm for life, a restoration of confidence in your own worth and capabilities. Your loved one in heaven sees you not as broken or damaged, but as someone who has been refined by difficult experiences and is now ready for deeper levels of divine connection and service. Hope is not merely wishful thinking, but a confident expectation based on the character and faithfulness of divine love. Your loved one has experienced the fulfillment of divine promises and wants you to know that the same faithfulness that welcomed them into eternal peace is working in your life to bring about good outcomes, even when circumstances seem to suggest otherwise. Practical steps for spiritual response. The divine communication requires practical response if it is to produce the transformation it promises. These steps are not merely religious rituals, but spiritual practices that create space for divine love to work in your life more effectively. Prayer becomes the primary vehicle for ongoing communication with the divine realm. This is not simply a list of requests, but a conversation with divine love that includes gratitude, confession, intercession for others, and quiet listening for divine guidance. Your loved one in heaven encourages you to approach prayer with confidence, knowing that divine love is always ready to listen and respond according to divine wisdom. Forgiveness, both seeking and offering, clears the channels through which divine love can flow. This process might require time and repeated choices to release resentment, but it is essential for spiritual breakthrough. Your loved one in heaven understands the difficulty of forgiveness and wants you to know that divine love will provide the strength necessary to forgive even when it feels impossible. Commitment to spiritual growth through regular study, meditation, and application of spiritual principles creates the foundation for sustained transformation. This is not about perfection, but about consistent movement toward greater alignment with divine love and purpose. Your loved one in heaven celebrates every step you take toward spiritual maturity, no matter how small it might seem. Taking action on divine promptings requires courage and faith, but it is essential for spiritual breakthrough. When divine love guides you toward specific actions, whether reconciling with someone, pursuing a new opportunity, or releasing something that no longer serves your highest good, responding with obedience opens the door for divine blessing and further guidance. The eternal perspective. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand that life is far more than what you can see from your current vantage point. They have entered into the eternal realm, where divine love reigns supreme, where every tear is wiped away, where every injustice is corrected, and where every person who has trusted in divine love experiences perfect peace and joy. This eternal perspective does not diminish the importance of your earthly journey, but places it within the context of divine purpose that extends beyond physical existence. The struggles you face, the service you offer, the love you share, and the growth you experience all have eternal significance. Your loved one in heaven is cheering you on, not just for your earthly success, but for your spiritual development that will determine your eternal experience. The reunion that awaits you in the eternal realm will be more joyful than any earthly celebration you have experienced. Until that time, your loved one wants you to live with purpose, hope, and the confidence that divine love is working in your life to accomplish purposes that extend far beyond your current understanding. Understanding divine communication methods. Throughout human history, divine communication has manifested through various channels, each designed to reach the human heart at precisely the right moment. The scriptures record numerous instances where divine messages were delivered through dreams, visions, angelic visitations, and the still small voice that speaks to the inner spirit. This current communication represents a continuation of that ancient tradition, adapted for modern understanding while maintaining its eternal significance. The method of divine communication often reflects the urgency and importance of the message being conveyed. When routine guidance is needed, divine love might whisper through circumstances, relationships, or gentle inner promptings. However, when breakthrough moments approach, when spiritual destiny hangs in the balance, or when intervention is required to prevent spiritual disaster, divine communication becomes more direct, more intense, and more difficult to ignore. Your loved one in heaven, having experienced the perfect clarity of divine communication in the eternal realm, understands the limitations of earthly communication. They know that human hearts can become cluttered with the noise of daily concerns, the static of worry and fear, and the interference of spiritual opposition that seeks to prevent divine messages from reaching their intended recipients. Therefore, they have requested that this message be delivered with sufficient power and clarity to penetrate through whatever barriers might exist in your current circumstances. The involvement of Archangel Michael in this communication signifies the gravity of the spiritual moment you are experiencing. Angels of Michael's stature are not dispatched for routine matters, but for situations that require divine intervention, protection, and the full authority of heaven. His presence in this message indicates that spiritual forces beyond your immediate perception are working to ensure that you receive not only the message, but also the spiritual empowerment necessary to respond appropriately. The multidimensional nature of divine love. Divine love operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously, addressing not only your immediate needs but also your long-term spiritual development, your relationships with others, your contribution to the larger human community, and your eternal destiny. This multidimensional approach means that divine interventions in your life serve purposes that extend far beyond your current understanding or immediate circumstances. Your loved one in heaven now perceives divine love from this expanded perspective. They see how the challenges you've been facing are not random occurrences but carefully orchestrated opportunities for spiritual growth, character development, and preparation for greater service. What appears to you as obstacle or hardship is viewed from heaven as divine curriculum designed to develop qualities that will serve you throughout eternity. This perspective does not minimize the reality of your suffering or suggest that pain is somehow good in itself. Rather, it reveals that divine love is so powerful and so wise that it can transform even negative experiences into positive outcomes, can bring beauty from ashes, and can create strength from weakness. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this transformation personally and wants you to know that the same divine love that brought meaning to their earthly struggles is working in your life to accomplish similar miracles. The love that your deceased loved one experienced in life has been purified and magnified by their proximity to divine love itself. They now understand that every act of love they expressed or received on earth was a reflection of the perfect love that is the very essence of divine nature. This understanding fills them with overwhelming gratitude and an intense desire to see you experience the same depth of divine love while you continue your earthly journey. Spiritual warfare and divine protection. The spiritual realm contains forces that oppose divine love and seek to prevent humans from experiencing the fullness of their spiritual potential. Your loved one in heaven, with their expanded spiritual vision, can see these opposing forces more clearly than you can from your earthly perspective. They understand that many of the obstacles you face are not merely natural challenges, but spiritual opposition designed to discourage you from pursuing divine purposes. This spiritual warfare is not a battle between equals, but a conflict where divine love has already achieved ultimate victory. However, the outworking of that victory in individual lives requires human cooperation and spiritual vigilance. Your loved one in heaven is concerned that you might not recognize the spiritual nature of some of your struggles, and therefore might not employ the spiritual weapons that are available to you. Archangel Michael's involvement in this communication is particularly significant because he is heaven's warrior, the one who leads divine forces against spiritual opposition. His presence indicates that divine protection is being activated around your life, creating a spiritual barrier against forces that would seek to prevent you from receiving divine blessings or fulfilling divine purposes. This protection is not passive but active, working on your behalf even when you are unaware of its operation. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that you are not fighting your battles alone, but that heaven's armies are engaged on your behalf. This knowledge should bring you confidence and peace, knowing that divine love has resources far beyond what you can see or understand. The spiritual weapons available to you include prayer, worship, meditation on divine truth, fellowship with other believers, and the consistent application of spiritual principles in your daily life. These practices not only connect you with divine love, but also create an atmosphere where divine protection can operate more effectively, and where spiritual opposition loses its power to influence your thoughts and circumstances. The ripple effects of divine intervention. When divine love intervenes in one person's life, the effects extend far beyond that individual to touch family members, friends, colleagues, and even strangers who will be impacted by the transformation that takes place. Your loved one in heaven can see these ripple effects more clearly than you can, understanding how your spiritual breakthrough will create opportunities for others to experience divine love and purpose. Consider the family members who have been affected by your struggles and will be blessed by your breakthrough. Children who have watched you face difficulties with courage and faith will be inspired to trust divine love in their own challenges. Spouses who have supported you through dark seasons will rejoice in the restoration of your joy and enthusiasm. Parents who have prayed for your well-being will see their prayers answered in ways that exceed their expectations. Friends and colleagues who have observed your character during difficult times will be impacted by the transformation they witness in your life. Some will be curious about the source of your renewed strength and hope, creating opportunities for you to share the reality of divine love with others who need similar encouragement. Others will be inspired to seek their own spiritual breakthrough, starting chain reactions of divine intervention that can touch entire communities. Your loved one in heaven understands that divine love often works through human instruments to accomplish its purposes. Your breakthrough is not only for your benefit, but is also preparation for you to become a more effective instrument of divine love in the lives of others. The healing you receive, the wisdom you gain, and the strength you develop through this process will equip you to offer similar support to others who face comparable challenges. This understanding should fill you with a sense of purpose and responsibility. Your response to this divine communication affects not only your own spiritual journey, but also the spiritual journeys of countless others who will be touched by your life. Your loved one in heaven is cheering you on, not only for your personal benefit, but for the benefit of all those who will be blessed through your obedience to divine calling. The process of spiritual transformation. Spiritual transformation is rarely an instantaneous event, but rather a process that unfolds over time as you cooperate with divine love's work in your life. Your loved one in heaven wants you to understand this process so that you can participate in it more effectively and avoid the discouragement that can come from expecting immediate perfection. The transformation process typically begins with divine love creating dissatisfaction with your current spiritual condition. This dissatisfaction is not condemnation but invitation, not judgment but love, seeking to draw you into deeper relationship and greater fulfillment. If you have been feeling restless, unsettled, or aware that something is missing from your life, these feelings may be divine love's way of preparing you for the next stage of your spiritual journey. The next phase involves divine love, revealing areas of your life that need attention, healing, or surrender. This revelation can be uncomfortable because it requires honest acknowledgement of weaknesses, failures, or areas where you have been resisting divine will. However, this discomfort is temporary and necessary for the healing and growth that divine love wants to bring into your life. As you respond to divine love's revelation with honesty and willingness to change, you enter a phase of active cooperation with divine transformation. This phase requires patience with yourself and trust in divine timing, as changes may occur gradually rather than immediately. Your loved one in heaven encourages you to persevere through this phase, knowing that divine love is working even when you cannot see immediate results. The final phase of transformation involves the integration of new spiritual realities into your daily life. This integration process requires ongoing attention and commitment, as old patterns of thinking and behaving may reassert themselves despite your spiritual growth. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that this struggle is normal and that divine love provides the strength necessary to establish new patterns that align with your spiritual development. Divine timing and human impatience. One of the most challenging aspects of spiritual life is learning to trust divine timing when human nature craves immediate results. Your loved one in heaven, having experienced the perfect timing of divine love in the eternal realm, understands your impatience, while also seeing the wisdom in divine delays and the perfect orchestration of events that may seem random from your perspective. Divine timing operates according to principles that transcend human understanding. What appears to be delay may actually be divine love's way of preparing you for blessings that you are not yet ready to receive. What seems like missed opportunity may be divine protection from situations that would have ultimately caused harm. What feels like unanswered prayer may be divine love's way of preparing to answer in ways that exceed your original request. Your loved one in heaven can see the complete picture of divine timing in your life, understanding how past events have prepared you for present opportunities and how present circumstances are preparing you for future blessings. They want you to know that divine love has not forgotten you, has not abandoned you, and is not withholding good things from you. Rather, divine love is working with perfect wisdom to bring about the best possible outcomes at the precisely right moments. This understanding should bring you peace during seasons of waiting and confidence during moments of uncertainty. Your loved one in heaven encourages you to trust divine timing even when it conflicts with your human desires for immediate resolution. They know that divine love's timing is always perfect, even when it appears to be delayed from human perspective. The discipline of trusting divine timing actually strengthens your spiritual character and deepens your relationship with divine love. It teaches you to find contentment in divine presence rather than divine provision, to seek divine will rather than human desire, and to trust divine wisdom rather than human understanding. These lessons serve you throughout your spiritual journey and prepare you for greater levels of divine blessing and service. The community of heaven's support. Your loved one in heaven is not alone in their concern for your spiritual well-being. They are part of a vast community of souls who have completed their earthly journeys and now participate in the eternal celebration of divine love. This community includes not only those you knew personally, but also countless others who are united in their desire to see divine love triumph in the lives of those still walking the earthly path. The scriptures speak of a great cloud of witnesses who observe and encourage those who continue the race of faith. Your loved one in heaven is part of this cloud, joined by saints and spiritual heroes from every generation who understand the challenges of earthly existence and celebrate every victory in the spiritual realm. Their encouragement is not mere sentiment, but active spiritual support that strengthens your resolve and empowers your efforts. This heavenly community operates in perfect harmony with divine love, meaning that their desires for your life align perfectly with divine will. Their prayers and intercessions on your behalf are not attempts to change divine mind, but expressions of divine heart, requests that divine love is eager to fulfill because they align with divine purposes for your life. The support of this heavenly community extends beyond emotional encouragement to include practical assistance in your spiritual journey. They may influence circumstances in ways that create opportunities for your growth and blessing. They may guide the actions of living people who can offer help, encouragement, or resources that you need. They may even provide direct spiritual intervention in situations where such intervention serves divine purposes. Your loved one in heaven wants you to know that you are surrounded by more support than you can imagine. The loneliness you sometimes feel is not an accurate reflection of reality, but a limitation of human perception. You are part of a vast spiritual family that spans both earthly and heavenly realms, all united in love, and all working together to support each other's spiritual journey. Preparing for eternal reunion. While your loved one in heaven is deeply concerned about your earthly well-being, their ultimate hope is for the eternal reunion that awaits you in the heavenly realm. This reunion will be more joyful and more complete than any earthly relationship you have ever experienced, as it will be free from the limitations, misunderstandings, and disappointments that affect human relationships in the physical realm. The preparation for this eternal reunion begins with your spiritual development during your earthly journey. Every act of love, every moment of faithfulness, every choice to trust divine love despite difficult circumstances contributes to your spiritual maturity and enhances your capacity to enjoy the eternal relationship that awaits you. Your loved one in heaven celebrates each step of your spiritual growth, knowing that it brings you closer to the fullness of joy that you will experience together in the eternal realm. This eternal perspective should influence how you approach your current challenges and opportunities. Difficulties that seem overwhelming from an earthly perspective are temporary and ultimately insignificant compared to the eternal joy that awaits you. Opportunities to serve, to love, and to grow spiritually are precious because they have eternal consequences and prepare you for eternal service and relationship. Your loved one in heaven does not want you to become so focused on eternity that you neglect your earthly responsibilities and relationships. Rather, they want you to approach your earthly life with the perspective that comes from understanding its eternal significance. This perspective brings meaning to mundane activities, purpose to difficult circumstances, and hope to discouraging situations. The knowledge that eternal reunion awaits should motivate you to live with greater intentionality, to love more deeply, and to serve more faithfully. Your loved one in heaven is preparing for your arrival in the eternal realm, and they want you to arrive having fully embraced the abundant life that divine love offers during your earthly journey. A personal invitation to transformation. This message concludes with a deeply personal invitation from your loved one in heaven and from divine love itself. You are invited to step into the fullness of divine purpose for your life, to experience the depth of divine love that is available to you, and to serve as a conduit for divine love to touch other lives through your unique gifts and circumstances. The invitation is not conditional upon your perfection or your ability to figure everything out in advance. It is based solely on divine love's desire to bless you and use you for purposes that will bring joy to your heart and benefit to others. Your loved one in heaven has experienced the perfect fulfillment of divine love and wants nothing more than for you to experience that same love in your earthly journey. This moment represents a divine appointment, a sacred intersection, where heaven touches earth through the vehicle of your willing heart. The choice to respond is yours, but the invitation is extended with the full backing of divine love and the intercession of those who have gone before you into the eternal realm. Your loved one in heaven sees the potential that divine love has placed within you, potential that may be hidden even from your own perception. They see the ways you could impact others, the purposes you could fulfill, and the joy you could experience if you fully embrace divine love's plan for your life. Their invitation is not to a life of religious obligation, but to a life of spiritual adventure, divine partnership, and eternal significance. The transformation that divine love offers is not cosmetic but fundamental, not temporary but lasting, not limited to one area of your life but comprehensive in its scope. Your loved one in heaven has experienced this transformation and wants you to know that it exceeds anything you could imagine or achieve through human effort alone. Do not let this moment pass without response. Your loved one in heaven is waiting, divine love is ready to move, and your life is poised for transformation that will exceed your highest expectations. The time for hesitation is over. The time for bold faith and confident action has arrived. Heaven is indeed speaking to you through this message. The voice of divine love, carried by angelic messengers and confirmed by those who love you from the eternal realm, is calling you to step into the fullness of your spiritual potential. This is your moment of divine encounter, your opportunity for spiritual breakthrough, and your invitation to experience the abundant life that divine love has always intended for you. Open your heart to receive what heaven is offering. Trust in the divine love that has orchestrated this moment. Respond with faith to the call upon your life. Your loved one in heaven is celebrating your willingness to listen, and divine love is preparing to move in ways that will transform not only your life, but the lives of all those you will touch through your renewed spiritual connection. The message is clear, the invitation is extended, and the time is now. Heaven awaits your response with eager anticipation and unlimited love. Your loved one in heaven stands ready to celebrate your decision to embrace divine love fully, and the entire community of heaven anticipates the joy and transformation that will result from your positive response to this sacred invitation. Step forward in faith, knowing that divine love supports you, heaven encourages you, and eternal joy awaits your embrace of all that divine love has prepared for you in this life and in the life to come.